Hi, and welcome to another video by The Peppy Ducky. Today we are going to do part one of the editor in PhotoScape 3.7, the free version. The first thing you will see when you open up the editor is over on the left-hand side, you're going to see your files. And underneath it, whatever files are open, whatever folder is open, it's going to show you a thumbnail. Now, if this is too small for you, you can actually open this up much wider. And so we're going to come in here and grab this photo right here. And that's great. So once you have your photo, you can just click on this and it'll actually go away and allow you the full screen. So the first thing you want to do is to resize it. Now there's two parts of the menu here. First one is resize, and then there's a down arrow. I'm going to click on the button first, and this lets you decide, and you can grab this menu bar in the white to move it where you can see it better. And the ratio, just so you know, people are like, what is ratio? That means that if you set the top, the computer will automatically set the bottom, and that's what this little lock is. It's going to preserve that ratio. If you didn't want it to, you could tell it not to. It breaks this lock, and then you could set this to 1000. I'm going to say okay, and you've just made a really funky picture. So I'm going to undo that. I'm going to go back to resize. Keep this locked is my best advice unless you're trying to do something creative. And I'm going to drop this down to 500 and it'll automatically change the height in pixels. So I'm going to say okay. And now this is a much smaller picture. If I wanted this to pop this up in Facebook or Instagram, it will load quicker. And I'm just going to now save it. If you save here, it will save over the top of the actual picture you have. And if you want to, you can create a backup in the originals folder. Before I say save as, let me go down here a second. The JPEG quality, pop it back up to 100. I hate that it changes it. You're already making a smaller file. Creates a backup in the originals folder. I don't want it to do that. And maintain the EXIF information. What is EXIF information? For those of you who may not know, when you take a photograph using a camera or even your iPhone, it saves the camera's information about that photo. I keep this information all the time. I never want to lose that. So I'm going to maintain that information. You may want to preserve the date that you took the picture. And now I'm going to say save as, and I'm going to save it here, not as the same name, but I'm going to say glass 1. Now you can also save this as a PNG, which is what I advise you to do if you're going to do any editing further with this, is to save it as a PNG. So that's how you can resize. The other way to resize is choosing this little arrow, and then you have choices. So I could have just clicked the 500 and it would have done the same thing. So I'm going to undo all and bring it right back to the beginning. That's resize. Now, one of the quick items that we have right up here at top, and you'll see you have sepia, bandicoot, grayscale, black and white, and invert negative, which reverses all your pixels. I like that they're right here because they are sort of like most often used. Sepia, most often used. Love the warm tone it gives you in a picture. If I click this again, it will add a little more sepia to it. There you can see it. I don't know if you can catch this. I can see it on my screen. It's lightening it just enough. So it's adding it over and over, sort of making a layer. My next is bandicoot. And it just gives you a nice, it's not black and white. Definitely gives you a warmer tone. And I'm going to undo all here because sometimes I think if you add these on top of on top of on top, you are not getting the true color. So I'm going to go to grayscale. And again, grayscale is different, but it's definitely pulling out all your grays in the colors, more your lights and your darks. I'm going to undo all, and I'm going to come in here and go to true black and white. True black and white, you'll notice the blacks, the dark colors, they have definitely shaded it here. And then you'll have your lighter colors are definitely more of the whites. The negative with the colors, and you'll see the difference. To me, this is almost Art Deco. I could use this as a backdrop in one of my videos. So these settings up here, and again, if you do one, make sure you undo and go back before you do another one, unless you want to do layer over layer over layer. The next thing we'll talk about is bright and color. And again, I'm going to start with the box. And the first thing that I like to look at is saturation. On a picture like this, I want to pop my colors up a little bit. No, that's a way bit. Let's come back here. And probably around the 20. So it just brought out the orange and the purple. And I can look at the preview down here in the lower right. I can click it to say that's the original and that's the picture. So this is sort of a color correction. And then I'm going to come up now. Hue is something that's really going to change the colors. And I think it's important for you to see what Hue did differently. You'll notice it literally changes the colors. Contrast, I'm going to bring this up. Oops, it's going to take a minute. There we go. Now this is, again, notice how this piece of glass gets very black because we're bringing up the contrast. And 26 might be a little much. Let's just go to 5. And a lot of times you can just bring these numbers in, and I can say 0 and it takes it back, and you can see this little green is staying there. Brightness, if the picture is a little bright for you, you can bring it down. And exposure, if you shot the picture either too high, you can bring it up or down. I can now also darken this picture. Let's just say 13. It gives it a little bit darkness, and I could brighten it. 13. Didn't do a whole lot to it. Usually you're going to have to brighten it up quite a bit. And again, if I wanted to deepen this, it just gives you a little deeper color. And I really like that. You know, if you want to see what it does, you can just say undo, which is Control Z, and then redo. Now we'll only do the last step, so that's very important. So that was bright and color. Now the shortcuts are the little arrows, and I can just come here and say I want to do any of these things. Now remember when we did sepia and Bandicoot grayscale, all these little buttons, they're over here. They're also under bright and color. And you can change the saturation curve. Now I just clicked and did the saturation. And these are things where you might want to know a little bit more about what you're doing. And we're not going to get too much into this at this time. But you can see I brought this in and really gave it some, really popped those colors. And it just is things you can play with those. There's no right or wrong. But we'll talk about those much more in depth. This is an intro at this time. So that's the video for today. We are just talking about those quick things. We want to keep this video somewhat short. Stay tuned for PhotoScape Part 2, where we'll get to film effects, and there's so many great ones. We are going to go into filtering. This will be one video, almost 2 videos, maybe just in this one. Please come back. Please subscribe if you can. Please hit the bell, and every time we make a video, you'll be able to stay up to date when we put out a new video on PhotoScape.